granniopteryx, granniopteryx. She knows the truth, she's linking every link.
Hello. Uplyme Parish is the sort of place that Americans think Britain is, and Brits wish that Britain was. It was home to Cynewulf, the famous Anglo-Saxon poet. I'm sure you know all about his life and works. And it very much appears to be like the romanticised community as shown in a BBC comedy show called The Vicar of Dibley. I couldn't watch too much of it, I'm a bit worried about getting diabetes. But true to form, it has a nice vicar. Her name is Nikki Davis, and this is her church. I do hope I've set the scene properly. But what's this? Trouble in Paradise? Or rather, in the Parish magazine, there you are, Parish News. And that's a periodical. I don't know how often it came out, but it's the usual sort of parish news sheet giving, births, marriages and deaths, which reminds me of a piece I once saw in a parish magazine, and it was a local woman having got married to a local man really, and the news article told all about the wedding and where it was held, and then they said Miss X is a school teacher and Mr. Y is a defective in the police force. I think the Parish magazine must have had it in for them, because the next edition that came out, there was an apology. We're sorry that we said Mr. Y was a defective in the police force. He is, of course, a detective in the police farce. There's a printer there with a sense of humour. Anyway, it was not only local news and tea parties and village fetes and all the rest of it, but poetry too. And the poet is a lady called Diana Hunt, and she had several poems published in this magazine over time. Now, you know that thing about mixed feelings? There's an old, very non-PC joke about mixed feelings when your mother-in-law drives over a cliff in your new car. Well, this is my mixed feelings about Diana Hunt's poetry. Let's get a larger version of it here. This is one of the poems. What's happened to our country, once so strong and proud? It used to punch above its weight and make its people proud. Okay. Look at every high street, you'll see shops boarded and closed down, not only in the cities but in everybody's town. The high street where drug users deal drugs in public places. They know there's no police around, no need to hide their faces. And then she talks about the council tax. If you don't pay your council tax, you'll end up in a jail, but peddle drugs upon our streets, then they get given bail. Boatloads of illegals flooding to our shores, step this way for hotel rooms and benefits galore. Okay, so that's part of one of her poems. And then there was another one, which actually I thought was rather clever, even though it is not the best sort of poetry. As soon as the news appears, I start up and off I go. I drone on and on making comments which are full of bile. I can guarantee that my behaviour will last for quite a while. There's a poet called McGonagall in Scotland in the 19th century. Generally speaking, he is regarded as the worst poet. Was it William McGonagall? Hang on, I'll have a look. Here we are, William McGonagall. He was considered to be the worst poet in the history of the English language. I can only agree with that. The Tay Bridge disaster being, you might call, his crowning achievement, or maybe the coup de grace on English poetry. Yeah, it's just indescribably bad. But I do urge you to look at it. Anyway, Diana Hunt gives McGonagall a run for his money here, but I shall press on. From politics to climate change and other world events to how much money in benefits to scroungers have been spent, there's always one who pitches up to say they can't heat up their homes. They fail to see the irony as they clutch expensive mobile phones. Then the great big fat ones who say they can't afford to eat. Many could live quite easily on their body fat for weeks. Okay, so that's Diana Hunt's poetry. The problem with all of this is that I sympathise with a lot of what she has to say, but I've never seen such a load of cack-handed doggerel, since I read the Tay Bridge disaster, actually. And it really just shows that it's not what you say, it's how you say it, because Robert Jenrick, with the exception maybe of being somewhat insulting to fat people, Robert Jenrick wrote this article here that turned up in the Telegraph and says basically the same things, but he's not going to end up with the same heap of opprobrium as poor Diana Hunt, who is probably going to end up a social outcast for the rest of her life. And that it looks like the vicar had the idea that she'd almost lost her job. And this is the problem. You see, let's look at this. Miss Davis, vicar of St Peter and St Paul, Uplyme, has now spoken about the matter and has distanced the church from the verses. She wrote in the May edition of the magazine, I am aware, it's a monthly magazine, okay. I am aware that the poem written by Diana has caused offence and hurt to some members of our community. This is clear through the responses received by the editor, Robin, that's Robin Hodges, as well as personal messages sent to me. So Vicar Nicky here has apologised, and Robin Hodges, the publisher of the magazine, or the editor, or the compiler, or whatever you like to call him, he apologised too. But let's just look at what Diana said. There wasn't one thing she said that was a lie, except maybe they could live off their fat for weeks. Well, they'd probably need a little bit of sustenance in between times, but yeah, that's a valid point as well, if somewhat overstated. And all the Reverend Nicky could think of to say was that it caused hurt. And what was it? Hurt and distress? Offence and hurt to some members of the community. Well, some members of the community will always be hurt and offended by almost anything. Those poems, as bad as they were, poetically speaking, were screams from the heart, weren't they? They were screams into the void of a lack of understanding of what's going wrong with this country. A shriek into the darkness. Why doesn't the vicar talk about that? Instead of giving way to the voices of the perpetually offended, this was an opportunity to discuss the very issues that Diana rather childishly put. Possibly you could say it was too strong for a parish magazine, but then you could also make the argument that that she was making a series of valid points about this wonderful, beautiful, almost fantasy land of an English village, which is threatened by the very things that Diana is talking about. And this was an opportunity to discuss those issues. And an opportunity missed. Just like much else in the church today. And the vicar here could have taken the offended and hurt to task about being offended and hurt. She could have had a true discussion with them. She could have dismissed their offence and hurt and asked them why they were dismissing what Diana had to say. But no, just offence and hurt. That was enough to shut anything down. And indeed, that will be enough to shut this down, because this needs protecting. And it won't be protected as long as talking about problems just cause offence and hurt that require instant ignoring. Okay, well, there we are, the parish of Uplyme. Till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.